The fire started a few miles east of us and then started spreading west and southwest toward the community of Concow and the town of Paradise. Based on the fire progression map, from the community of Pulga to the fire actually burning down most of the town of Paradise, that took about 5.5 hours, and the fire spread about 12 miles in that time period. The vast majority of the time, even a big, intense forest fire in a natural forest, it'll burn at a fraction of 1 mile per hour. This was moving at about 3 times that rate. Look at this. Man, this is just nasty. It spread across several thousand acres that were heavily post-fire logged after that 2008 lightning fire. And we're standing in one of those areas. Dead trees were removed, but also a lot of the live trees too. And then they planted a tree plantation. When fires burn through, they tend to burn very hot. They move very, very quickly because there's nothing to buffer the wind, and there's so much cheatgrass after the post-fire logging that it just carries the flames really fast. People just didn't have time to evacuate, and the consequences of that were devastating. If this area had been protected, if there was not this sort of heavy logging that occurred in various ways over the years, the fire still would have spread through this area. It just would have spread through much more slowly. And the likelihood is, given all the data on how these fires actually operate outside of these heavily logged areas, there would have been at least another 2.5 hours for people to evacuate from the town of Paradise. What the United States Forest Service and the Trump administration are proposing is exactly this sort of thing. We are deep in the middle of the Rim Fire, burned in 2013. The Rim Fire was the biggest fire in the Sierra Nevada in at least several decades. And we're in the southern part of the Rim Fire right now. We're just south of a Forest Service road where they did roadside post-fire logging within about 100 meters of the road. And you can see right here, basically where they did the post-fire logging, it's converted it to essentially an invasive cheatgrass. And that's what you've got. And I'm standing on the boundary of the post-fire logging unit, and now I'm looking into the area that has not been logged or artificially planted. This is all natural post-fire succession. This area, the Forest Service is now proposing to post-fire log. The Forest Service has already gotten this $28 million grant from the Trump administration approved, and so logging could begin any day. Fires are always catastrophic when they burn homes and when people are injured or lives are lost. That's always catastrophic. But ecologically, in our forests, no, fires are not catastrophic. Study after study after study is telling us that if these areas are not subjected to post-fire logging, that they have levels of native biodiversity and wildlife abundance that's comparable to old growth forests, in some cases even higher.
This morning, I was very anxious to see the northern goshawks. The nest is in a pocket that burned with lower intensity, surrounded by really high intensity burn. At this point, there's 3 chicks in the nest, very feisty, fighting for food, and it's a really lively scene. It's great, a blessing that we found her. The spot where she is possibly going to be clear cut. It's what they call a cutting unit right now.
Fire-killed trees attract an abundance of native insects like wood-boring beetles, and the woodpeckers feed on their larvae. Bluebirds and nuthatches nest in the former woodpecker cavities. Small mammals and shrub nesting birds nest in all this lush understory vegetation. So this is actually an incredibly rich and biodiverse ecosystem. The Forest Service is claiming that this area will not regenerate with conifers for hundreds of years, if ever, unless they cut it down and spray herbicides and artificially plant it. And yet, this is what we're seeing. The Trump administration and its allies in Congress, and unfortunately some Democrat politicians, have been using these tragedies, these human tragedies, where homes are burning and people are losing their lives, as an excuse to try to roll back environmental laws and massively increase logging. And the science is telling us loudly and clearly that that's absolutely a destructive approach. And in fact, that will not only destroy habitat, but it'll actually make communities more vulnerable to wildland fire.